The bus was already full from its normal route, and now it was halfway through a second route. Another bus had broken down, and so ours was scooping that second bus's worth as well. We all had to get to school. Seats that normally sat two were being piled thick with groups of 3 and 4, squeezing uncomfortably close on the sticky brownish-green vinyl seat. The final stop before the long 20-minute journey to school. The last few kids climbed the stairs of the ugly utilitarian school bus, and their young round eyes stared uncomfortably down the long, narrow aisle, looking for a place to sit. For a moment, those eyes fell longingly to the one seat that was miraculously empty, except for one skinny kid. And then they chose to cram into one of the overcrowded benches instead. Now, I'd like to tell you that the lone kid on the bench got to keep his comfy, all-to-himself spot because he was so cool, such a rebel. The kid got to keep his seat because he was such an outcast that all the other kids would rather uncomfortably pile onto each other than sit with him. In an overcrowded bus stuffed with too much energy and too many elbows, the most uncomfortable seat on the entire bus was the one next to me. I got that entire awful bench to myself. Now, this is a real story, and it proved to be one of the many excruciatingly painful times in my school years. So this was particularly hard for me because all I wanted was to fit in. I literally went to sleep every single night imagining what it would be like to be popular. And I woke up every single morning dreading going to school because I knew I was the opposite. Now, I wish I could tell you that things got better. Well, actually, I think I can. I'm here talking to you, and I've gotten a chance to hang out with and even share beer with many of you. And today, I'm CEO and co-founder of the Stone Brewing Company, the 10th largest craft brewer in the United States, and the first American craft brewer to build, own, and operate our own brewery in Europe. Now, Stone Brewing is, we're doing all right, and I'm mighty proud of it. But I'll be honest, the road between that school bus and this stage and that photo has been a long, strange trip. Now, I'm going to tell you how I learned to distrust, then despise big beer and that stuff that they call beer, and big food and so much of that stuff that they call food. And pretty much the entire system that commoditizes and industrializes the formerly authentic and artisanal. On this journey, I'll actually take you from the 1870s to the most uninspired time in American history, yes, otherwise known as the 1970s. And then, probably most importantly, I'm going to talk to you today about how today's artisan entrepreneur is locked into the internal struggle not to be consumed by commodity businesses who actively sacrifice quality and character on the altar of the almighty dollar. Why? Because they virtually have no choice. But I'll get into that in a moment. Even as I got a little older, I still often felt uncomfortable in my own skin, as I do today. It's lucky me, it's how I'm built. But, that severe emotional immaturity of mine that made things so difficult when I was young is perhaps possibly a benefit today. I'm still able to look at the world as an idealist, a dreamer. At 52 now, I am happy to say that what I lack in youth, I make up for in immaturity. I know that no matter what age I am when I finally kick the bucket, I'll be dying young. It's become obvious to me that I won't ever stop being a misfit. Now, there's two different kinds of misfit, of course. Those who could fit in but don't want to, and those who are not able to fit in but desperately, desperately want to. The difference is huge. I know. I was the latter. Today, I do a pretty decent job at pretending to the world that I'm the former. But back to the kid for a moment. As I grew older, I tried hard to lose my misfitness. I did my best to hide in plain sight by looking like someone who did fit in. In college, I even took to wearing button-down collar Oxford shirts and polo shirts, and yeah, this fitting in thing took me to some pretty awful places. That is the most embarrassing picture out of all of them. It turns out that as a misfit, I have an unrealistic view of the world. Interestingly, that also seems to be the trait of an entrepreneur. We don't focus on what is, we often focus on what could be. We see the world through a different lens. And it's through that lens that I first discovered real beer in 1987. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's get in the Wayback Machine for a moment, which interestingly was invented by a total misfit. And we're going to go back to 1879. Then there were more than 4,000 breweries in the United States. However, commodity forces played their hand, and over the next 100 years, consolidation, industrialization, and greed led to just 42 breweries in 1979. The 70s were the nadir of complete mediocrity, the coming of age for homogenization. It was an age of fluffy white bread and pre-wrapped cheese slices and freeze-dried, vacuum-packed instant coffee crystals. Little wonder that this is the era when light beer was invented. That's priceless. America, you see, was the laughingstock of the beer world. It was the commodity world's industrialization of beer that got us to that low point. And you know what? There was only one brewery doing something different in 1979, one misfit. And that brewery was Anchor Brewing of San Francisco. Yeah. And they deserve it. I had my first encounter with them at a little hole-in-the-wall dive bar, kind of a punk place in downtown Los Angeles warehouse district called Ailes Bar. And I had two reactions when I first tried this beer. One, I was elated to find that beer could taste that amazing. And two, well, honestly, I was angry. I was angry because I realized at that moment all of my previous beer drinking years that had been stolen from me by the lies of the man telling me that that other stuff was beer. You know what I'm saying? And now I knew better. I was inspired. I had to be a part of this thing called craft beer. It was a major moment in learning to distrust the system, but I'm sad to say it wasn't my only one. From my late teens to the middle 20s, I was in a prison of acute chronic gastrointestinal problems. I was in misery most days. And my crime? Eating that stuff that they called food. And it made me sick. Foolishly, I thought the problem was me. I went to a number of doctors. I had all kinds of evasive tests, got prescribed medicines, spent a ton of money, never got any definitive conclusions. But you know what? Not once did any one of them ever say, "So Greg, tell me about your diet." Somehow, I eventually clued in that what I was eating might have something to do with it. I cut out all fast food, processed foods, sodas, and sugary foods, and I started eating actual, real food. And all of my problems went away. I was free. Now, it seems so obvious to me today. It was all part of my learning to really, really distrust the system. The one that told me that that stuff was food, that that other stuff was beer, and here, take this pill, and everything will be better. Well, I was living in LA in my 20s, and I was ensconcing myself in the rock and roll scene. I found myself gravitating towards other misfits. Torn jeans, it seems like such an innocent age now. I was a bit of a metalhead, and I noticed, as so did many others, when Metallica's Black Album became a massive hit in 1991. Now, a music magazine put them on the cover right after that happened with a caption that I will always remember. It really spoke to me. It was very simple. It read, "Metallica didn't go to number one. number one came to them. And I loved what that said. And it finally started to dawn on me that, hey, maybe there was an advantage to not fitting in. Rock and roll helped me realize that I wanted to do things that weren't just different, but very different. Bigger, bolder, over the top. Call it a form of compensation, if you will. Interestingly, rock and roll helped me learn to do things that were impossible for other people to ignore. So, what is a socially awkward person who's learned to be distrusting of societal norms and commodity food and beverage supposed to do? Well, co-found a craft brewery, of course. And so I did with my business partner, Steve Wagner, in 1996. But we did it bigger, with more intense beer styles, flying in the face of what anyone in the industry would have said was the right way to do things. We never advertised. We didn't need to. We just did things the way that we wanted. We worked our asses off and had the time of our lives. I was guided by my rock and roll inspirations. And as I said, we're the 10th largest craft brewer in the United States. Worked out okay. We know that we make beers that most people don't like. But to some folks like some of us, we love. And that's what's important, to do things that you love. After 10 years of being in a very generic industrial building, we found ourselves in need of a new brewery. So we decided to build one, and we added a restaurant. The restaurant and the brewery were out of the way, hard to find. We had no sign on the building, a complete ban on high fructose corn syrup, a very eclectic menu, all organic ingredients. 3 closest restaurants to us, a Chili's, an Applebee's, and an Olive Garden. We were flying in the face of what anyone in the restaurant business would have told you what it would take to be successful. The result? Well, we're actually the 3rd largest visitor destination in the north half of San Diego County, behind the San Diego Zoo Safari Park and Legoland, of all places. You know, like a true misfit that finds some success, we tend to seek out ways in which to be the odd one out. Oh, as an aside, besides being the largest visitor destination, or 3rd largest in San Diego, I'm the proudest about the fact that we are the largest restaurant purchaser of local small farm organic produce in San Diego County. Do you have any, Michael, do you have any runners that get beer for speakers while they're on stage? Because I'm really thirsty, just in case, if there's... You can't get anything done. Folks like me, we want to fit in, and yet we find ourselves actually doing things actively to not. And of course, what is one of the biggest, boldest, and most foolish ways that an American craft brewer cannot fit in today? Oh, by going to Germany, of course. To be the first American craft brewer to build, own, and operate our own brewery in Europe. And in Berlin, we found the perfect misfit location. A near-abandoned gasworks factory that for the past 20 years has had little ability to fit into modern needs, thus a perfect home for us. We're out of the way, hard to find, no sign on the building, a very eclectic menu that will focus on organic ingredients. You've heard the story. We're not open yet. We're about 2 months away. Now, we have plenty of people who think that what we're doing is going to be a massive, massive failure. But you know what? I think we're going to do just fine. Even though artisanal has seen recent success in recent years, we've seen the industrial beer market's share slip as Americans have come to understand the value of quality choices. Oh, bless your heart. Cheers to all of you. The big corporate giants have taken to acquisitions and subterfuge to expand their businesses. And for just one example, this is at the Burbank Airport Burbank Airport Bar recently. And you could find the brands Goose Island IPA, Elysian IPA, Red Hook IPA, Golden Road IPA, Kona IPA, 10 Barrel IPA. Shock Top, Bud Light, all on tap. What do these brands all have in common? They all could have potentially come from this one brewery, or one like it in another part of the country with the same name over the door. Yeah, they're all brands enveloped in the warm embrace of the AB InBev family. Stone IPA has been around since 1997, well before 99% of the other IPAs on the market today and all of AB InBev's. It's flattering, yet admittedly a little disconcerting that the world's largest brewer is working so hard to capture our little slice of the market. Anyway, over recent years, commodity brewers have been quietly purchasing a number of craft breweries in a plan to steal craft away from its independent authenticity. Over time, they, by necessity, homogenize and commoditize. History saw this happen with American beer once already, as I showed you. And this isn't just limited to beer, of course. Here's the reality. Public companies have a legal requirement to maximize shareholder value. Fail, and they expose themselves to shareholder lawsuits, and management finds themselves not getting their bonus or getting the axe. It's not a secret that a great deal of time and energy is spent chasing quarterly financials and share price. But is this a system that leads to the best quality results? Does it really benefit the consumer or society? Even though I personally could get a giant paycheck, I will never sell Stone to Big Beer, ever. We will not be commoditized and we will not be homogenized. Artisanal entrepreneurship is a different kind of system than publicly traded companies, one that follows an ethos that involves passion, heart, and soul. I not only embrace the misfitness in me, but in others as well. I mean, that's where you find the good stuff. So in a world in which there are constant forces towards homogenization and fitting in, I specifically want to foster a world of uniqueness, depth, and character. And enter our solution, True Craft, which I am announcing for the first time today. How do we create something that can help the independent artisan remain independent and allow their philosophies to flourish? True Craft is that answer. It's the alternative to being pushed out or bought out by the mega industrial commodity world. Market forces are beginning their march to recompress the beer industry, is illustrated just by that Burbank Airport bar, with all of its illusion of choice, but coming from just one company. There's a squeeze coming on in the craft brewing world. And True Craft's goal is simple. Give craft brewers another option than selling a majority interest to private equity or selling out to big beer. With True Craft, we are putting together a consortium of independent investors to create a new platform, specifically aimed at minority, non-controlling investments in breweries. It allows craft breweries to stay craft breweries. They can make their own decisions about their future. They can stay independent. They can get financing and flexibility that they need to flourish while keeping their soul and control. And this model is designed to go on in perpetuity. The model works, fortunately, for the financial investment community as well, because if it didn't, this thing wouldn't work. True Craft is built to help misfit companies stick around in a world that's designed to assimilate them like the Borg. We have an initial $100 million commitment with a lot more in discussion. We also have a small group of the best craft breweries in the business interested in joining, so that their founders can know that their vision is locked in and will be able to live on well past their own professional lifetimes. See, some people start companies to sell out, and some start companies because they are compelled to follow their passion. True Craft is for the latter. But this isn't just about beer. We want to improve this platform so it can be used for a wide range of food and beverage companies for, and I don't say this lightly here, the benefit of mankind. So that quality, character, integrity of honest, real food and beverage can one day become the norm instead of the exception. This is my passion. And just as amazing beer is my passion, at Stone, we refer to ourselves as a united band of misfits. And you could say that that's exactly the goal we have for True Craft. After all, some of us looked at most of what's out there today and we decided we're just fine not fitting in. If I could go back to my desperately wanting to fit in younger self and tell him anything, it would be this: conformity, overrated. Misfit, well, it might not always feel like it. Really, it's a hell of a lot more fun. And to all of you, my brothers and sisters, from one misfit to another, I don't really want to fit in. Do you? Hell no. Hell no.